Jack Tisson is a person that is analysing why I was a 34-year-old alcoholic living in a bed pit in Southend-on-Sea on the verge of death from alcoholism and was jobless. I was as low as you could possibly get at that period of time. Because of that, I developed a following. A lot of the people that follow me have a shared experience and people feel like they're being listened to. And I think fundamentally, if you're in a bad space and you understand that there is somebody out there who understands you and actually empathizes with you, that is something that would give you a sense of you have value because somebody's acknowledging that you're actually there and your problems count.
Hello and welcome to Working to Work, a neurodivergent journey through employment. I'm Sam, your host, either your host or the host. I guess it depends on how much affinity you feel with me and what I'm offering and the project in general. Welcome to listeners on Resonance FM. Welcome to people watching on YouTube and also listening on the podcast feed. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Shaun. Shaun is a YouTuber and also works as a doorman. And Shaun has a YouTube channel that is titled Jack Tisson. And Jack Tisson is a way that Shaun has concocted to explore the challenges that he's experienced in his life with work and with his wider life as well. So he wanted to understand why he had struggles with alcoholism, with work, as I mentioned, and with relationships, and did a lot of research and then has channeled this into a YouTube channel, which incorporates humor and interesting insights and a kind of subversive approach to exploring and connecting with others that may have similar challenges to him. The YouTube algorithm introduced me to Shaun's work, and I was grateful that Shaun was willing to take the time to speak with me about the ideas behind the channel and then also some of those challenges that he's experienced. And one of the things I really appreciate about Shaun's channel and Shaun in general when I got to speak to them is how constructive and solution-based his mind is and what he's putting out there. So I don't want to give too much away. I want to play the interview and for you to be able to listen and make your own assessment of the episode and what Shaun's trying to do. Again, thank you for listening and I appreciate your support. Please do subscribe and follow and those things that help boost the channel and project, because that fundamentally helps support the mission of this non-funded, unsupported, very grassroots project. So I appreciate it. Here is my interview or my conversation with Shaun, aka Jack Tisson. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. What led you to start your YouTube channel?
Okay, thanks for the question, my friend. Essentially, there was a question I wanted to answer, and that was, why have I been so unsuccessful in life? And that was at the age of 35. And there were different things I was looking into. Why was I unsuccessful when it comes to my career? Why was I unsuccessful when it comes to attracting females? And why was my life such a mess when it comes to things such as addiction, constantly going out of mental hospitals, constantly going out of prison, and having this basically living in squalid, low socioeconomic conditions all throughout my adult life. So at the age of 35, I started to look into this kind of thing. That started the Jack Tisson channel because I used that as a medium to find out how to answer these questions. What led to me being this type of man in the first place?
So you start this YouTube channel. I'm not sure if Jack Tisson is an alias or a kind of actual name.
No, my real name's Shaun. Jack Tisson isn't me. He's a YouTube character, and he's one aspect of me, and that is the guy who has had a lot of failures in life and is trying to work out how this happened, why this happened, and he's looking at the myriad of ways to understand this. And that guy, Jack Tisson, he has quite a lot of empathy for people in that situation, because Jack Tisson, understands that situation is a result of often factors outside of that person's control. And what I'm trying to do with the channel is look at the low status male as an entity, as an individual, and try to understand what causes a low status male. And for that reason, I look into various different factors, ranging from the environment, which I think is very important, particularly your upbringing, and the culture that you belong to. Not so much the wider culture of your nation, but the subculture. Often it's regional. Secondly, your genetics. What is it about you genetically which affects your performance? So I always use the word performance. How are you performing when it comes to different metrics? And then the third thing I would say is that I try to look at what is changeable from a viewpoint of having both your environment and your genetics against you. And I'm very big on a person having the ability to change their lives. But I try to spread this message, not so much through positive mental attitude philosophy, because I believe a lot of that doesn't look into the environmental and genetic factors and just give people a narrative which makes them feel good, but doesn't give them any practical ways of changing their existence. So I look at things from a perspective of what is possible from a realistic perspective. And then I look at things like educational theory. I look at things such as how to increase your influence in the world through being socially intelligent. I look at things such as using your environment to your best advantages. And fundamentally, I'm just trying to work out how a low status male solves the problems that had made him become a low status male in the first place. Pretty much all research is research. And I'm looking at things and I'm trying to, when I get these insights, I'm trying to spread it with the audience. But I think also because I display quite a lot of empathy for people within that situation, if I see somebody as a good guy, then I've got quite a lot of empathy for them types of people. I think a lot of times people just listen because they realise somebody understands them.
I think I was shown your videos by YouTube initially because this channel, Working to Work, is about the intersection of neurodivergence and employment and the challenges a lot of neurodivergent people experience obtaining and maintaining gratifying work. And I think the first video that I saw of yours was speaking to your experience, like not feeling like that the 9-to-5 kind of consistent full-time work worked for you. So I'm curious why you've felt that you've struggled in those scenarios and others that you've interacted with in your audience.
Looking at it from the perspective of neurodiversity, I mean, I've been diagnosed with several mental health conditions throughout my life. When I was younger, when I was like 40 years old, they said I had ADHD. And then as I got older, I was in a mental hospital when I was 17 after smoking cannabis for about a year. And they told me that I had some type of schizoaffective disorder, which is like some type of psychotic illness. And then when I was in my 20s, I got in trouble with the police. And when I was incarcerated, they said I had a personality disorder. So, and then as I got older, I started to realise that I've had a lifelong problem with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. The primary part of it that I believe relates to the workplace is how you function when it comes to doing repetitive tasks on a daily basis. And one of the things that I found be lacking when it comes to securing long-term employment was stimulation. And I need to be stimulated by things on a daily basis that are novel, which give me a clear interest, something that I'm really interested in. And thirdly, something that I believe that I'll be good at and I actually want to engage with in the first one. So if I don't have them types of stimulation events on a daily basis, then I go into this extreme boredom. And if I get extremely bored, it, it's a very painful experience. It's not something which I can really justify sometimes, because some people will say, well, everyone gets bored when they're in the workplace. But I get so bored that I have to leave. And this has been a problem throughout my adult life, because I don't like being bored. I have to have this constant stimulation, this feeling that I've got some type of investment in what I'm doing, feeling that I can actually do well at this thing that I'm doing. And if I don't feel like I'm invested, because I can do well, I don't feel stimulated, then the boredom becomes like an extreme mental, and all I could think about is that I can't be in this space. And I'll often either leave the job while I'm there, which I've done a few times, or I won't go back the next day. And that means on several occasions throughout my life, I've lost like 1 or 2 days. Secondly, I think certain people with a neurodiverse mental condition have kind of lopsided mental capacity. So they'll be very good at certain things. Like for me, I've got certain traits that I perform quite well at, and other times I struggle. Particularly with me, it's pattern recognition, the ability to manipulate physical objects and do it in a valuable way, but building a brick wall, or putting a door up, or fixing the car. I find these kind of logical sequences very difficult, and what it does is it creates a lot of anxiety when I'm put under pressure, and this makes me feel embarrassed and humiliated. And oftentimes in the workplace, this is something which can be a real obstacle. So the other factor about it is that I'm quite socially anxious, and people be quite surprised because I'm a huge guy. Yeah, I mean, I'm like 6'5". I'm like 18 stone. I'm a really big guy. Yeah, and people would not expect me to be as socially anxious that I am. But when I go into a social environment and I don't know the people there, I get very paranoid, and I worry that I'm not going to fit in, and I worry about what I'm saying. Is it going to cause offence? Because I'm constantly masking because of my neurodivergent mindset. I just want to say what's on my mind, but I have to understand that the social context dictates that I can't. So I have to pretend that I'm just the same as everybody else when it comes to my how my brain works, how I think, and that masking exhausts me. And because of that masking, that means that I get exhausted, I get paranoid, and I can fall into hating people. And if I fall into hating people, then that becomes a very dangerous space, because then I could get into conflict with my managers, with my work colleague, and it could even lead to me getting into trouble, because I could say something or do something down a bad way. So oftentimes I avoid this type of situation by assessing the workplace. If I think these peoples are going to be too difficult for me to deal with, I just leave. So there's this is how my brain functions, and this is how I find it very difficult to operate in the workplace.
Why do you perceive that people will be surprised that you are find yourself socially anxious sometimes? Despite being big, why do you think that people think, oh, because he's a big guy, he wouldn't be socially anxious?
I think it's basically because I'm quite cerebral and I'm quite introspective. I think that limits my ability to be that type of person, and I just think maybe I'm just reading into things. But I think if I didn't know myself and I was looking at me, I think, why isn't that guy really extroverted or that kind of thing? And I'm not,
It doesn't surprise me that I don't make these presumptions, but it doesn't surprise me that you potentially are anxious in social situations. What surprises me, I guess, a little bit, given your confidence, the confidence you exude in your YouTube videos to kind of, we discussed it's not necessarily exactly you as a character, but fundamentally still be saying things that are what I think to an extent true to you and that you feel and believe in, that doesn't, because that's very much absolutely unmasked in some of the framing and the video titles, and that puts one at risk of being really kind of criticized, I think. I would say unjustly, but I guess we can get onto that because I'm curious about it. But I guess what I'm curious about is, why doesn't that translate, do you think, into when you're socializing, that sense of like, I'm going to be me if you don't like it, and because you have the evidence that you've drawn people that to you that do get you and do understand. So I guess they're the minority, though, in the sense of wider society.
I think Jack Tisson, the character, he's like quite easygoing, and he's quite self-deprecating. He jokes a lot, and he's got quite a relaxed worldview. But when I'm in the real world, and I've got this level of interaction where I've got to be more conformist to how I need to operate within certain social structures, I can't just be myself. I have to adapt to my surroundings. And at that level, I sometimes find it confusing. And the strategy that I've always used is humour. So, I mean, I work, the only job I was ever stuck at is being a doorman. That's my current job. I work as a doorman. And it gives me the ability to just joke around all the time. That's what's expected of you at a customer service level. So if I can joke around with customers, if I can joke around with the members of staff, then I find that I can operate at that level without a problem. But it's when you get involved with workplace politics, or you get involved with having to deal with difficult situations where you're put under pressure, and what you do counts for the general operation. I do tend to have quite a bit of anxiety. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that it's all the time, but it's a lot worse in jobs where I'm placed under pressure. And for that reason, I've had an avoidant personality in these areas throughout my life, and I think it's affected my development, because I don't think I'm as low ability as I've allowed myself to believe throughout my life. I just believe that a lot of the times that I've failed, it's been down to the fact that I've literally not been interested, and I haven't been able to navigate the social landscape, and I've got bored too easy, and that meant that I've left straight away, and I haven't given myself time to acquire the skill. I mean, I've developed a mindset that I'm bad at these things, but in reality, I might be a bit slow. It doesn't mean I can't do it.
I'm curious, like when you were talking before about you getting bored and at jobs, and I wonder whether you thought at that point, because it happened and repeated itself, like, so I guess you gain a consciousness of like this pattern eventually. Like, have you thought to yourself, okay, what would you design as a job, as a work life for you that you would find gratifying in all aspects of your life? Or do you think that exists?
I think one of the best statements I've ever heard pertaining to personality types is that an extrovert gets charged up by people, an introvert gets charged up alone. And I'm pretty much an introvert. I don't mind interacting with people, but a lot of the time I need to be alone. And when I'm around others for a long time, even if I find them to be benevolent and I've got no personal issues, I find it exhausting because of the masking I need to do to be able to continually interact with them at a level which is acceptable. So the masking makes me exhausted. If I had any type of career outside the context of security, it would have to be something that was primarily self-directed. You know, I'm looking to get into recovery drive. You know, like we're picking up people with cards and just doing roadside recovery, because that's a self-directed job. You haven't got any experienced people that you've got to constantly try to work out and try to adapt to, and try to appease with your socially approved behaviour. Yeah, I find it exhausting. I find it really, really exhausting. Masking, as neurodiverse people would all know, masking is exhausting. So if I can limit that exhaustion, then that would be something that could give me a certain amount of ability to be able to function with the workplace.
I think this is common with lots of people. I need time alone. That's the way I recharge as well. I guess I'm just thinking, like, in terms of like the masking, this isn't me saying the way you're doing it is wrong, but the more neurodivergent people, or just people that just the way that they speak and behave and communicate diverges from maybe like the majority, the more they mask, the less possibility for it to become kind of normalized in society as just a kind of another way of communicating, and that kind of just perpetuates the need to that some will feel to mask, and the negative repercussions for those that choose to not or can't do it so well. So it's challenging, and some people don't even recognize they know they're doing it until they're completely burnt out by kind of having this kind of mask. One of the things that I've really appreciated about the videos that I've seen of yours is that you're not really focused on blame. You're not kind of like, it's all their fault and all of my woes are down to this factor. You acknowledge environmental factors, differing challenges that people have in terms of how they interact with each other, but you don't think the answer is blaming others. Like, can you speak to a little bit about that approach?
Yeah, that's really good, mate. That's really good because when I was younger, I'm 42 years old now, I blamed everybody. I blamed I blamed my environment. I was very jealous of others that were doing better than me. And I was extremely hateful. Like, I had this real sense of hatred for other men and women who seemed to function well in the world. And there was a line that I read from a writer, and he said that when you blame others for the problems that you've got, what you're doing is you're handing over your power to them. So if you blame your environment for your adult status, your adult life, then you're not taking accountability for the things that you could do today, which could improve your own existence, because there's so much that you can do. And if you blame your own like capacity, so you say the reasons why I can't learn this particular skill set is because I'm not intelligent enough. So what you're doing is you're handing over your power to that particular circumstance. Well, but if you say, well, I will constructively engage in activities that will maximize my own potentials in this area, then you're not allowing a circumstance to dictate what your final outcomes will be. You're doing everything you possibly can within the aspects within your control to get the best possible results. So if you blame, for example, your environment and say, I live in a bad area and I've got a poor housing conditions and I've got no backers, then what you're saying is that until all these factors come to meet your needs, then you're essentially going to be a person who is going to fail and not going to even try. But you've got to be able to assess your situation and say, I will do everything I possibly can within this context to improve my situation. And what you're doing then is you're not allowing your circumstances to dictate what you do within the things within your control. There's basically, you're accessing what's within your control, and you're not allowing the things that are outside your control to dictate what you'll do within that context. That type of thinking means that whatever problem you've got, it will always be based on what you can do about it rather than what is actually happening, which is outside of your control. So it's a proactive, constructive mindset. And I made a video one time called How the Poorest People in the UK managed to overcome their situation like that. And it was about this guy I met in a warehouse, and he worked two jobs. Like he worked a night shift and a day shift. And the guy had nothing. He had no car. He lived in a bed bit. He had no family backers, but he was saving money, doing the hardest things he could possibly do with absolutely nothing on his side. So he didn't allow the fact that he lived in a bed bit, he had no backers, he had no skills to stop him from progressing. He saw what he could do, and then he constructively did what he could do without blaming and saying, I won't do anything until these situations change. So I think that way of thinking is something that is a skill that can be learned.
it can be difficult to inhabit that mindset if, say, one is depressed. So if there's a lot of challenging situations that happen or a lot of disappointment, I think one can become potentially depressed with their circumstances, and it's maybe harder to access that, even if one wants to, and maintain that mentality of like, well, what can I change? What can I do? When one feels potentially jaded by life or a bit beaten down.
Yeah, very, very true, very true. But one of the things that enabled me to climb out of a bad situation, because I was like an alcoholic. I was a lot worse then than I am now. And one of the things that enabled me to get out of my situation was to see what was within my control and then change that, which was my addictive behaviour. So I stopped drinking and actually trying to improve my situation through my own effort. I actually said I won't wait for the environment to meet my need. I will meet my needs with the things I was available for me at all at the time. Then I did radically change my existence from the age of 35 up until the present day. And, that was the mindset that enabled me to do that. So I do try to talk about that type of thing, because although I do believe in genetics, I do believe in environment, I also fundamentally believe in a person's ability to change what they can. And I do believe that people's potential is a lot higher, but it has to be understood at a belief level first.
No, that's 100% the impression I get. That you said that Jack was empathetic, but I perceive that you are as well, and that you do believe in the potential of people.
I do believe in people, and I believe in a man, and that a man has got the abilities, and a man is not just something put on this earth to be a total failure and useless and all that kind of things that a lot of people believe themselves to be. And it's very hard for me to get that point across, because some people look at me and go, "Well, look at you. You're a snake." Yeah.
A lot of this is optics as well. Like, for example, like you, I think, post your videos and set them up in a way that is very relaxed and differs from others that would give them that perception. Without you changing anything psychologically about yourself or your material circumstances, you could like sit at a table with your camera propped up, and actually people probably I'm not saying you should do this. I think you should do it however what feels authentic and you want to and is comfortable. But like, it's interesting, I think, then people's perception, you could be saying the same things or something with a clean shave, and their perception of you would be different.
If I wasn't so honest, mate, I would not have the problems that I've got now. My honesty has been a big problem when it comes to my channel, because when I speak honestly about the things on my channel, I'm obviously pointing out my bad flaws. Like, I'm saying that I've had educational problems, I've had problems with social problems, I've had work problems. So I'm always putting out my worst flaws. And because I'm doing that to try to deconstruct these types of things, obviously, if you're continually pointing out your flaws, then that's all people see, and that facilitate them thinking about you in a certain way, and then that would mean that you get categorized in a certain way. But the real me, Shaun, not Jack Tisson, is not a guy that sits around pontificating all day about being a guy that's got all these problems. Like, I've actually got a life. I work the door. I do smoke, but I do train quite hard in martial arts. I travel around the world. I've got a girlfriend. I've got all things going for me.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that. Like, well, I guess what I'm saying is like that. Yeah, the way people perceive visual images, or that people being honest and candid about things that are challenging, or have been challenging in their life, like for those that don't think critically about it, really influence how they perceive that person. But and in the flip side, when people see like Instagram models and they're like on the beach, blah blah blah, people think they live this amazing life and everything is always fine. But I don't see it that way either. Like, I imagine they look like they've just woken up sometimes or have bad days.
Yeah, definitely. I talk a lot about how looks affect a person's outcomes when it comes to dating, and I speak about it quite casually. A lot of people have got this perception that I'm this guy that has this constant fixation on that one thing. Like, if I really don't care about that, it doesn't really bother me at all. But I didn't point it out because I try to allude to the fact that your physiology has an effect on outcomes. And I've categorized men in 5 different categories based on their physiology. So, like I've said, there's like, different looks, and different images, and these different looks and images will have an effect on, various different factors. You've got to look a certain way sometimes to have optimal results. This kind of thing has led a lot of people on my channel to think that I'm this sort of incel character who constantly fixate on my looks all the time, so I can, because I'm constantly being portrayed by this genetic reality. But the real me, Shaun, doesn't care, and this is another reason why I've been typecasted as sort of like a person who's like a sub-5 incel. The reality is that I'm not. I just acknowledge that I look a certain way, and this has had certain effects on my life, and this is another thing that Jack Tisson diverts from the real me, which is Shaun, who just doesn't think about these things as much as I probably would imagine people would think I do.
So what's the motivation then to do it? Why make these videos then in a way? Like, in a sense, like, you don't want to be a YouTuber, I think, or you haven't said that, hey, I want to make this my profession. You seem kind of like actually pretty content with like how things are for you at the moment. I wonder what the motivation is, especially if it's actually not necessarily the perspective of yourself, but a character.
You're right. Well, Jack Tisson is a person that is analysing why I was a 34-year-old alcoholic living in a bedsit in Southend-on-Sea on the verge of death from alcoholism, and was jobless. I was as low as you could possibly get at that period of time. That's one of the reasons why Jack Tisson exists. And secondly, because of that and that initial reason, looking at my life history and trying to work out what brought me to that place, I developed a following. And I realized that a lot of the people that follow me have a shared experience. And then when people listen, they feel like somebody understands them because they've had similar situations. So it's almost like I'm empathizing with people at a mass level. They're being listened to because somebody's actually explaining what has gone wrong in their life through using my shared story. So I think really and truly what the purpose of Jack Tisson is just to give people a voice who haven't got one, and make people understand that they're not alone, and make people understand that the problems they've got can be solved at a certain level, at the most scientific, accurate, and rational basis possible. But I think primarily, I just think that the purpose of my channel is just that people feel like they're being listened to and somebody understands them. And I think fundamentally, if you're in a bad space and you understand that there is somebody out there who understands you and actually empathizes with you, that is something that would give you a sense of you have value because somebody's acknowledging that you're actually there and your problems count.
Yeah, no, very well said. Yeah, so in some sense, it's like the reminder of the agency that people have, and the kind of constructive aspects are a kind of secondary point. I think that's a really fundamental part of what you do in terms of like what it offers. But yeah, the first and foremost is that sense of, in modern vernacular, like being seen, feeling seen, and like that, yeah, you're not alone, and seeing your challenges and your life experiences reflected back to you. If you don't see that kind of reflected back in the kind of mainstream culture or around your peers.
That's the one, actually. That's the one. It's not reflected in the mainstream culture. These types of things of low status, forgotten men who are in a situation where no one's even listening to them, because the celebrity culture is about being economically successful, being desired at a mass level by females, by having all the cards in favour, and when you're in a situation where nobody's listening to you and you feel like you haven't got anybody in the mainstream culture who would even acknowledge your existence, when you've got somebody who, even at a metaphysical level, does acknowledge your existence, then you feel like you've at least got somebody out there who can acknowledge the problems that you face. And that gives you a sense that you are a person who has value, because somebody out there actually does say you have value and actually want to hear the problems that led you in that situation in the first place. And I think that's the space that I feel.
You've spoken about like in one video I saw what you described as kind of a normie culture, and that some people kind of thrive within that and some feel kind of alienated. And I'm curious, like, why you think that is, and what are the psychological effects of struggling to find work that you feel like you fit in and can stay with.
That's a really good question, my friend. Yeah, a normie is a person that I've analysed to death. It's a person that conforms to the expectations of the wider culture. And they do this naturally. They don't have to mask as much. They naturally conform because they have this ability to learn the rules and customs and values and beliefs of their culture and then totally go along with it. And this enables them to function as a fully capable social animal. That's the first thing. So they haven't got the masking ability because they don't need it. Now, secondly, a normie is a person who has a normative range of capacity. They're bright enough to do the jobs needed to function well within the economy. They get it and they can learn at a normative level. So you've got the ability to socialize properly, plus you've got the ability to easily function at a level that is to your interests. Thirdly, I find that the normie is a person that doesn't have values outside of their own self-interest. So they're not really bothered about wider society issues. They're only bothered really about gaining their own material interests. So this means they don't have much mental stress because they're often just engaged in their own activities. And that means they can focus all their intelligence in the areas that count, which is their career, their relationships, and the things that matter to them within their very parochial worldview. And for this reason, the normie character is prized by the rulers of society because they function as effective agents within different social structures, such as the private and the business sector. And this type of character is acknowledged as a person and will always have a place because they're always useful based on the attributes I just described: the ability to socialize, the ability to function well within the economy with level of capacity. And because they don't have too many mental issues, because they're basically kind of only really interested in the things that count to them. It means they haven't got these real big problems like personality disorders, that kind of thing. So they're kind of a character that I've analysed because I've been trying to make myself one for the last few years. I'm not one of these people that, is part of any that doesn't hate normies. I actually really like them and I want to be one. And part of my channel is actually trying to make myself into a normie. And obviously with the social aspect, it's masking, but masking more effectively.
That sounds so stressful to me, to try to blend into a situation like where like you're having to contort and conform to the expectations of others and the sensibilities of others all the time is really damaging, I think. And like that wouldn't be something that I would want to aspire to. Like, I think to develop oneself and to be able to interact in a way that feels organic and good to me as an individual and can, to a certain extent work for those that maybe behave differently is fine. But I wouldn't want to, like, I don't want to devalue my own humanity enough to think that I need to fundamentally change myself to meet, even if it's the vast majority of the world. The things you're talking about in terms of like, believing that you've got agency, feeling empowered, like that you can change your life, those things I can get with. That I have to fundamentally change myself to be accepted and to feel some level of comfort in society, I can't. And also, as you say, particularly because masking is very exhausting and it wouldn't be that comfortable, it'll be exhausting. And
yeah, it's exhausting for me. I mean, I set clear boundaries. There's certain things I won't do. I won't go back to drinking. I won't go back to taking drugs. But everything else, I just try to not be as crazy as I am naturally. And that enables me to fit into spaces that I would never be able to fit into before. My early life, my teenage years, and my 20s was spent in and out of prison. So, I developed that kind of character where I just said what I wanted, did what I wanted, and I didn't really care about the consequences because I was very antisocial. Now, if I carried on with that way of behaving, I would just be incarcerated all the time, and I wouldn't be able to function within the spaces that I'm trying to occupy at this present time. So I set boundaries, which is don't drink and don't take drugs, and I set boundaries when it comes to how I allow people to behave around me. But I have to be a bit more of a normie, otherwise I just simply won't be able to function within that world.
In terms of the psychological effects of struggling to find and maintain meaningful work, like what do you think for those, what do you perceive those are?
I think a man's career is really important. He's going to give himself a better quality of life if he's successful in this area. But also, it's important for a man to have structure. It's important for a person to be able to utilize their mental resources in a place where they can be most efficient. And secondly, it's important for a person to be able to overcome challenges and stretch themselves and see what they're capable of and learn from trial and error, that kind of thing. And if you don't meet these demands, you're going to be like me when I was in my early 30s, a broken individual who feels totally worthless and feels like he's got absolutely no capacities as the valued member of society whatsoever. And I don't mean to say this is that you've got to be a people pleaser and try to appease others and try and do it for status and recognition. I just mean for yourself. When you feel totally worthless and you feel like you have got absolutely no abilities in areas which count whatsoever, then that is the type of thing that will build a mentality where you're constantly feeling inferior, you're constantly feeling beaten, and you're constantly feeling hopeless. So the important thing to do is not so much to appease others, it's to be able to, what Nietzsche described, Friedrich Nietzsche, when he said, what is the primary motive for a man? He said it's not self-preservation, it's to release his power. So what I mean by this is the ability to get the best out of yourself within your own circumstances. And if you don't get the best out of yourself, then that is going to be something which, when you go on in years and you look back, you're being filled with regret.
I'm just curious about the videos that you make. Like, as I mentioned before, like I perceive that you identify a challenge and then you kind of move forward and then present not necessarily solutions like here's going to fix it all, but like what agency you have, what's constructively you can offer. How do you like come up with the ideas for the videos? And then do you kind of just like speak it, or do you kind of plan it out?
So I'm thinking about my own problems, and I'm thinking about the problems of the past. And I'm trying to accurately diagnose exactly what these problems are and why they happened. Oftentimes, the audience has had the same thing happen to them. So when you're speaking about what led to the problems, these people then begin to understand that's what led to their problems too. So they get a more clear understanding of the problems they had, or they have, or they suspect they've had, and that gives them insights into themselves. So it's kind of like an interplay between what I'm saying and what they're listening to, and my insights become their insights. And I think a certain type of person like to have insights into the reasons why things are happening in their lives the way they are. So I think that's one of the reasons why I connect with the audience. Now, how do I come to these conclusions? It's basically just, I think all the time. Because I'm thinking about certain problems, I'm thinking about certain perspectives, I'm thinking about certain types of things that can happen to a man or a woman and lead to certain outcomes. Now and again, what happens is I get this clear insight, and it starts with one idea, and then that one idea becomes something that will go into a video format. Now, I often make videos, and they're so bad, they're so incongruent, they're so unclear on what I'm trying to say, I just scrap them. I probably only publish about 1 out of 10 videos that I make.
Well, you're an amazing storyteller. I was listening this morning and just like thinking, and I've been thinking a lot about storytelling. I think that's one of the reasons, I think, from my perception, or why I'm engaged with it. I can't speak for other people. I don't know. But so it's the ideas that you're sharing and the insights, but it's the way that you're telling it.
Yeah, I'm heavily influenced by Charles Bukowski, and I've read a lot. I've read a lot throughout my life. I've read loads of literature, and Jack Tisson comes across as a guy that just sits on the bed, and he talks about being lazy. He talks about all the problems that he's had, and he talks about all the things that have happened to him, which have as a passive victim of circumstances. But Shaun, the real me, has spent his whole life reading. I've read a serious amount of books, my friend. And I've done a hell of a lot of serious writing. I've written a lot of articles, I've written plays, I've written novels. I've done a lot of that work in that area. So I've developed a good vocabulary, and I've developed an ability to put words together, and I've developed the ability to be able to say things in a way that's captivating, because I've got so much experience and I've done so much practice in this area. Am I natural? No, I'm not a natural. It's just something that I've done for so many years.
I'm curious about like the way that you present the videos, because some of the video titles are maybe like what could be seen as quite provocative or sensationalist. And I've thought a lot about this in terms of this project as well, like not wanting to kind of use kind of sensationalist titles. But what I recognize with that is that people engage with those, people are intrigued by those, and that makes them click on, and that makes them then engage with the content. And I'm curious whether it's a conscious thing for you to pick titles that you think would be provocative, or how do you kind of balance it with, I guess, not wanting it to kind of detract from the kind of core idea that you want to get across, which is pretty balanced?
Okay, I think primarily, my friend, I'm at a fundamental level quite antisocial. So I like iconoclasm. I like doing things that go against social norms. So the titles are just my subtle way of annoying people that I perceive to be social conformists. I mean, I made a video. One of them was, I don't hate the working community for their behaviour towards me, despite their actions, and it's just a way for me to critique the critics and do it in a way which is kind of a little bit surreptitious. I'm not actually directly challenging any kind of social norms, but what I'm doing is I'm challenging the types of people who challenge social norms. So I'm taking a morally superior position on really and truly an incredulous situation. Like I'm saying, I'm laying in bed and I'm saying that I'm disgusted by these people who are waking me up at 2:00 in the afternoon, kind of thing. I'm saying something without saying it. I'm critiquing the people who critiques who try to enforce social norms from using the same type of language that they use. So it's just a way of sort of showing the psychology of the bullies of society who try to make everybody think like them. As you know, my channel is really designed to create empathy for people that have been like me in the past and what I am like at this present time. So it's got a very clear agenda, but I do like to have a bit of fun while I'm doing it as well.
Thank you so much, Shaun, for taking the time to speak with me. I'm curious, if you could shift the way society thinks about work and employment, what kind of changes would you like to see?
It's a really good question, my friend. I really appreciate it being the last question. I'd like to see people who are poorer, people with less opportunities, people who have made a few mistakes. I'd like to see society intervene at the state level and give these people the resources needed to be able to change their existence. just not let people dwell in bed sits or in the streets or in in the mental hospitals, but actually try to find out what got them there in the first place and give them the tools needed to go to activate these types of changes. It's all very well and good, if you're 26 years old, you've got nothing going for you. You need someone to help you. And the way to help them is to get the resources going. Now, people go, you haven't got the resources. Well, if that guy's in that mental hospitals, in that prisons, in that homeless centres, and he's caused all these troubles, then the compound effects of him as a financial burden is going to be more than it would be if you actually helped him when he most needs it. So I think there's a phase of societies that just don't help people. And they're allowing lots of people to basically exist in these spaces of degradation where they could do something if they actually had the will to do so. So that was what I'd like to see change.
In practice, would that be, do you think, more money into social services and like social workers being able to identify what people need, or kind of like different ways of like getting people into employment where they can have make a job coach or something that can support them as I don't the DWP isn't very effective at that, for example. I don't think they just want you to get any job. I don't really have the space, I think, to say okay, what are you good at? Kind of what do you really enjoy doing? How can we help you develop those skills so that you can apply? It's all kind of very base, I think, of us okay, let's get you into some job, which isn't necessarily gratifying, and you just get into the loop that we talked about here where people leave and it just starts again. I think if you, like you say, you invest a bit more time in the beginning about empathizing, understanding what that person needs, what the challenges in their life are, and helping them to mitigate those and find things that align with their strengths, you're going to have, it's going to cost the state less money, and it's going to lead to more gratifying citizens and happier people, I think, fundamentally. But that's a kind of it takes a bit of time and effort, and it's kind of to see that borne out in statistics potentially takes longer. And I think that short-termism blocks this country a lot of the time from just having happier people and healthier people and costs us money in the end.
Well, I'll keep it as succinct as possible, but there's kind of like a social Darwinism going on all over the world anyway, and the social Darwinism based on what I classify as the sort of the in-group type of behaviour. So you've got the average person that they're all there is this sort of competition going on throughout the public and private spheres within the workspace. If you look at it with that context, and those who fail, which is people who fail for various reasons that haven't been given the opportunities because they've got no financial backers in their family, they've got no difficulty, they've got mental health problems, they've got addictions, they've got housing problems, all these different things, right? And there's a natural inclination for people who fall down low in status to analyse them as deficient in some way. And there's a dismissive attitude where if they can't get themselves together, then why should I help them? And at an individual level, that is a problem. But when you've got it at a mass level, then that is evidence that there is this social Darwinistic attitude that is the central will of this present society. Now, I'm not saying it's any different anywhere else. I'm just saying that is how human nature operates. It's human nature to analyse people who you see as doing worse, and then gaslight them and say it's their character flaws, it's their personality, it's their choices, rather than analysing the problems they've got and trying to rectify them. And because that's the easy way of labelling somebody rather than actually analyse them, see if you can actually come to some constructive conclusions. Now, I think that there's a natural tendency within institutions to look down on those who've had these types of problems and see them as beyond help and see them as beyond any type of intervention. And that dismissive attitude pervades as a culture through sort of institutions like the job centre, part of working pension, and very social services, the council, all these types of prison, mental hospitals. And that means that you're not going to be able to access these services because the culture is not allied with you in that way. They just see you as somebody they need to they need to dismiss and go away. Okay, so if there isn't the will to do so, is based on, I believe, a certain aspect of human nature playing out within the wider social structure. I don't think that you're going to ever change that, because there's always a hierarchy of humans, and those at the bottom always tend to get pressed down upon by those who have got the ability to do so. Having said that, people like me, people like yourself, others who do believe in people who have reached this type of low status, it's our job to build the motivation and to at least understand where they're coming from. So at least at a certain level, somebody believes in them. And I actually see the system as something that doesn't need to change. You need to change. You need to be able to adapt to the system. So, a lot of the time, it's not about how the systems and others are treating you. It's how you actually use the system to your advantage. So, you actually got to think how to deal with this exclusion and work out how you can actually get yourself into a position where you're actually doing better. And that is, understand your environment rather than be a victim of it. That's Jack Tisson's worldview. Don't blame the society. Try and work out how to use it for your advantage.
Once you're in a position as well, like, you have more ability, I think, to make changes. It's difficult to make changes from the outside if you get yourself more people in positions that have a mentality of, okay, well, this was a struggle, like I had this doesn't work for me, but now I've got my, I figured it out. And now I'm in a position, maybe I can shift things to make it slightly easier for those that may be struggling a bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of social Darwinistic philosophy, and for a society that claims to be progressive and all that kind of thing and liberal, it at the institutional level, there's a lot of individuals in these institutions who do not believe that those who have hit a certain bad position in life have any type of intrinsic value, and they believe it's down to them as people rather than the actual society itself. And they believe that any help or any kind of provisions they offer will always be won't have any use.
All right. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye, mate.
All right. That was my interview with Shaun, aka Jack Tisson. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't feel there's that much I need to say following that. I think Shaun spoke so eloquently to the challenges he's experienced, what he's looking to do with the channel, and then also what he sees as the problems with wider society in terms of supporting people who may diverge in terms of their behaviours for a myriad of reasons, and what he would like to see done to help support those people and mitigate those problems. I hope that in its own small way that this project helps to elevate those voices and perhaps influence some change or change some minds. And I feel that not everything needs to be top down, perhaps shifting people's perspectives through sharing the voices of those that maybe aren't heard as frequently, or opening people up to being able to empathize or at least sympathize with different perspectives that may not relate to their own life experience in its own small way helps. So thank you again for listening, watching, all those things. I will be back next week with another episode, and I hope to see you then.